Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. Coming back at you today with some more NFL draft content. Today it is going to be my mock draft 2.0. So this is my post NFL combine mock draft. It's going to be including some trades. So we're going to start off with a bang right away. We have the New York Giants trading up to the first overall pick with the Tennessee Titans. This is a trade swap that is being heavily rumored at this point in time. So I'm going to go ahead and make it happen, and we're going to have the New York Giants select quarterback Cam Ward out of Miami. And at this point in time, the Giants definitely do need a quarterback, and they're making a big swing here for Cam Ward. And I know a lot of the rumored trades also have Harold Landry going to the Giants too, with Shane Bowen being the defensive coordinator there, who does have some experience with Landry. So I'm not exactly sure what that trade scenario will look like, but we're just going to do the pick swap for this first round mock draft. We're going to move over to number 2. So I have the Browns actually selecting Shedeur Sanders here. There's a lot of rumors speculating that the Browns will select a quarterback, especially with the uncertainty of Deshaun Watson at this point in time. So they get younger at that quarterback position, get somebody that's a little bit cheaper in Shedeur Sanders. We'll see what he can do. Hopefully this offensive line can stay healthy in front of him. And then we move over to number 3 with the Tennessee Titans, with them getting their guy, or potentially their guy, in Abdul Carter as that edge rusher out of Penn State. And if the rumors are true that they're actually trading Harold Landry away, this definitely makes a lot of sense. And with that trade, they would also acquire additional draft capital, which is something the Titans do need, as they only have like 2 picks in the top 100 picks. So definitely would like to see them trade back in general, but this trade does make a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. And we're going to run right over to another trade. So I think at number 4, the Patriots would be comfortable taking Travis Hunter, but I also think they'd be comfortable moving out of this pick, trading back, getting more draft capital to build up the rest of their roster. And the team that I do have coming up here is going to be the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints do need kind of that face of the franchise player. They're kind of in this cap purgatory, so getting younger across the board, getting a player that has the ability to play multiple positions, whether that's corner replacing Lattimore, who they traded away to the Washington Commanders last year, or at wide receiver alongside Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, or, kind of a safety blanket insurance policy if those guys aren't able to go long term. Definitely does make a lot of sense for them. And it will be interesting to see what this Saints team looks like long term, but I think it's a move that would make a lot of sense for them at the same time as well. Then we move over to pick 5. We got Jacksonville Jaguars taking defensive tackle Mason Graham out of Michigan once again. Not too much here to say. It's the exact same pick that I did have in my last mock. Makes a lot of sense, bolstering that defensive line for them overall. Then at number 6, I have a trade here. This might just be Jerry getting excited. So the Cowboys moving up from number 12 to number 6 with the Raiders. I think at this point in time, there's nobody truly on the board that the Raiders are going to be like, oh my God, I need. So trading back does make a lot of sense for them. Ashton Jeanty, though, going to the Dallas Cowboys in this scenario, running back out of Boise State, if they consider him that blue chip prospect, if they think he's a guy that's going to really help out their running game and sell some tickets at the same time, definitely could see them moving up for him. Although, the Cowboys typically aren't a team that moves up too much. Then we move over to number 7 with the New York Jets. I have them taking Tetrell McMillan here, wide receiver out of Arizona. So it is expected that they'll move on from Davante Adams with Aaron Rodgers no longer being a part of the team. So this is an easy replacement here to play alongside Garrett Wilson for whoever their quarterback in the future will be. Then we move over to the Panthers. So I think the edge rush group changed a little bit this week. So I have them selecting Mykel Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia. I think he definitely has a ton of potential. He played most of the season banged up. So if he's anything like he was during this season, plus the extra 60% that he probably wasn't healthy, this is a very young, talented player who's going to play a big role in their defense, and they definitely need defensive help at this point in time. Then we move over to the number 9 pick. So this is actually going to be the New England Patriots. So this is the pick that they traded with the Saints. I have them selecting Will Campbell here. I technically have him listed as offensive lineman. His arms were relatively short at the combine. I think he could stick at tackle. So it could be the left tackle of the future for them. It could be a guard. It could be maybe even a center for them with the intelligence that he does have. I think there's a lot of different possibilities and flexibilities for the Patriots with this pick and bolstering that offensive line for Drake May just in general. Then we move over to pick 10 with the Bears. I still have them selecting Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. He fits that Dennis Allen defense pretty much to a T. Obviously had a very, very good combine. Was all the way down to 267 and posted a relative athletic score of 10 overall. Then we move over to the 49ers. Once again, I have them selecting offensive tackle who they might ultimately play at guard until Trent Williams retires, and Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Very good scheme fit here. There's not too much else to say here. It's the same exact pick that I did have in my most recent mock draft as well. Then we move over to pick 12 with the Raiders. This is the pick they got from the Cowboys. And I still think at this position, the Raiders don't really truly have anyone that they're like, oh my God, I really need to pick. So I wouldn't be surprised in this scenario if it were to happen that they would actually trade back again and acquire some more draft capital. But in this scenario, I do have them taking what could be perceived as the best player off the board, and Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. I'm not sure that he's the greatest scheme fit, but they do definitely have a need at corner at the same time as well. Then we move over to pick 13 with the Miami Dolphins. I have them taking Armand Membu, offensive lineman out of Missouri. He played right tackle in college. He has some experience at guard. Be a really good scheme fit for the Dolphins, and it'd be very interesting to see where they play him along that offensive line. Not sure if he would fit in long-term at left tackle after Teron Armstead moves on, but gives a little bit of versatility overall. Kind of see where he best fits along that offensive line. He's a guy that was not in my mock 1.0, but he was like pick 34 in the 7th-round mock draft that I kind of had built behind the scenes. So a little bit of a bump up here for him. He had a big combine. I would not be surprised if he goes in the first round, and definitely has some pretty decent upside. Then after that, we move over to pick 14 with the Indianapolis Colts. I still have them taking Trey Amos here, cornerback out of Ole Miss. Everything I hoped for out of him at the combine came true. He's a good press man-to-man corner. He fits this defensive scheme very well. It just makes a lot of sense to me, and he's not getting as much love as he really truly deserves in this draft class. Then we move over to pick 15. So I have the Atlanta Falcons taking James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. So he ran a really good 40 time. Vertical wasn't quite as good as we expected. He measured in with decent size, so not really concerned there. I think the Falcons could definitely use him in this defense overall. You know, they could go with a different player like a Jalen Walker if that is somebody you want. Probably could fit their scheme as well. But James Pierce Jr. and tapping the potential that he does have would make a lot of sense for this Atlanta Falcons team. Then at 16, I have the Arizona Cardinals, who in my previous mock draft, I had them taking James Pierce Jr. I think they really would like him along that edge group. I don't think there's like a true position that stands out for the Cardinals, but interior offensive line is a big need for them still. So I have Zay Grable out of North Dakota State going to them. He could play center. He could play guard. A lot of different ways that you could use him along this offensive line. Then we move over to the Cincinnati Bengals, have them selecting Walter Nolan once again, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. It's a very important position for this Bengals team. I think Walter Nolan does offer some really good upside, and it's just a really strong fit in a position of need for this team overall. Moving over to pick 18, I have the Denver Broncos trading up with the Seattle Seahawks to select Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. So this is kind of where the slide for Tyler Warren stops, as some people might say it, but I think the Broncos are going to be very interested in him. Sean Payton wants that joker role in his offense. That could be Tyler Warren. Moving up a couple of picks to get ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or whoever else might potentially trade up definitely does make a lot of sense here. And the Seahawks are typically a team that does like to trade back, so it definitely makes sense from that aspect as well. And this one was just pretty easy for me. I think it suits all sides very, very well overall. Then I move over to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them selecting Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall. Definitely love the upside with Mike Green. There was some question marks with him at the combine. Had the hamstring injury, so he didn't really test. Measured in, about the same size that he was at the Senior Bowl. And then he answered some of the questions in the interviews relating to why he was dismissed from the University of Virginia. So that opens up a little bit of a can of worms, some red flags there, but nothing ultimately ever truly came from it. So it's kind of a he said, she said story. We'll see how much that actually does affect his draft stock, though. And then we move over to the Seattle Seahawks. After they move down 2 picks with the Denver Broncos, I have them selecting Jalen Walker here, edge rusher out of Georgia. He could be a linebacker too as well. I think he's a type of player that he's kind of one of these weird players that, they could have some decent upside. They're kind of built a little bit different. Seattle always seems to kind of like those players, so it does make a little bit of sense that they would go after him. You got the Mike McDonald defense, at times in the past. I believe he used Tyus Bowser kind of inside outside at that linebacker position, edge rusher position, so maybe he could do something similar with Jalen Walker at the same time as well. Then we move over to pick 21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this pick did remain the same. I have them taking Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Solid, steady Eddie wide receiver, which is something they kind of need on their team at this point in time. Then we move over to the Los Angeles Chargers, had their pick remaining the same at 22, with them taking defensive tackle Kenneth Grant. I definitely do like his upside. I like what he could provide for this defensive line overall, and obviously he already has that connection with head coach Jim Harbaugh. Then the Packers are kind of one of these teams that missed the mark for me at this point in time. So in my initial mock draft, I had them selecting Gray Zabel. Obviously, he went to the Cardinals earlier. I think they still have a pretty big need on interior offensive line. They could look at corner. They could look at defensive line at the same time as well. But ultimately, with offensive lineman Donovan Jackson, there's some potential that he could play offensive tackle if that's something the Packers want to try out, and they like moving guys kind of around. You know, the Packers are one of them teams, they kind of value these players that play at these high-level schools. So especially in the early rounds, I would not be surprised if they took a offensive tackle out of Ohio State in Donovan Jackson. Then right after them, I have the Minnesota Vikings taking cornerback Jahdae Barron. Has some experience in the slot, has some experience outside, has some experience at safety. And Brian Flores, a defensive coordinator, he's going to find a way to use him as best as possible. You know, if they choose to move on from Josh Metellus, it would make some sense to kind of make him that role where he's playing a lot of that nickel, a lot of that slot overall, which is a role that I think he would do very well in overall. Then we move over to the Houston Texans, my favorite team. So my first mock draft, I had them taking Luther Burden the third. In this one, it's going to be Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Ran a 4.29 40-yard dash. Obviously came on really strong in the college football playoffs. He could be a very versatile playmaker for them, replacing Stephon Diggs, who is probably not coming back. And then obviously Tank Dell with his own injury, probably going to miss this season. But, you know, him and Tank Dell playing alongside each other with Nico Collins, kind of inside-out versatility with him and Tank Dell could open up this offense in a pretty big way for C.J. Stroud. Then we move over to Los Angeles Rams. So since my first mock draft, they did re-sign Alaric Jackson to play left tackle. So I'm going to lean off of the offensive tackle at this point in time. I have them selecting linebacker Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. I'm a little hesitant to make this pick, if I'm being honest, because the Rams typically don't highly value that linebacker position. Obviously, Ernest Jones was a third-round pick. Some of the guys that they had last year didn't have a lot of high-value draft capital. But when you have the chance to draft a guy like Jihad Campbell that can play inside as your traditional Mike linebacker, off-ball linebacker, if you want him to do that, he can blitz, he can come off the edge if you need to do so. Adds a lot of versatility to that front seven for this Rams team overall. Then we had the Baltimore Ravens. Their pick remained the same for me as well. So I have them taking Ariante Ursary, offensive tackle out of Minnesota. I think he's going to be their future left tackle, whether that's bringing Lorani Stanley back on a short-term deal or whether he's just going to replace him right away. Had a very good combine. Definitely don't see a problem here, and he's going to fit that gap scheme that the Baltimore Ravens do like to run. Then we move over to the Detroit Lions. I have them taking safety Malachi Starks out of Georgia. And if we're being honest, he's pretty similar to Brian Branch, but it does give their defense some versatility. One of those guys could play in the slot. One could play at safety. They could kind of move him back and forth, move them all around, and get very interesting on defense. I think it is something that would be pretty interesting. And I do believe that Kirby Joseph is also a free agent this year, so you could play both at safety if you really wanted to do so at the same time as well. And then we move over to the Washington Commanders with Josh Simmons, left tackle out of Ohio State. Obviously, he's coming off that knee surgery, so we'll see when he's going to be available. I don't particularly like Brandon Coleman at left tackle. I think he'd be a major upgrade from him. You can move Coleman into guard where he's probably better off anyways, but like the upside of Josh Simmons, potentially the best offensive tackle in this class, just unfortunately got injured this season. Moving over to the Buffalo Bills, I have them selecting Nick Emmanwori, safety out of South Carolina. He could definitely go higher than this, but it's just kind of the spot that fit the best for me. So they could use an upgrade at that safety position. He's a freak athlete. He had a relative athletic score of 10, best safety that's ever tested at the NFL Combine. So definitely do like him. What they could potentially do with him in this defense, there is a lot of possibilities there. Sean McDermott would love to have a guy like this on his defense. Then we move over to the Kansas City Chiefs, who still have a big need at left tackle. And kind of surprisingly, at least for the time being, looks like they're going to hold on to Trey Smith. So a little bit less holes on that offensive line. If Josh Connerly could play left tackle for you from day one, move Tooney back to his normal guard spot, this could be very interesting. I like the upside of Josh Connerly Jr. He falls a little bit in this draft, but it is definitely a position of need for this Kansas City Chiefs team overall. And then last but not least, I have the champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, selecting Donovan Ezeraku, once again, the edge rusher out of Boston College. I think he's just a perfect scheme fit for the Philadelphia Eagles team. But with that being said, that's my mock 2.0 post-combine mock draft. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Be sure to let me know which picks you liked, which picks you didn't like. If there's a pick that you might make a little bit differently, be sure to let me know. If there's a trade you'd like to see in a mock draft, be sure to let me know that as well. Also, let me know what you think about the trades that I did ultimately end up making in this mock draft as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now we have NBA DFS in terms of the core pick videos Tuesday through Friday. Been posting up a good amount of NFL draft content as of late. If there's anything else specific you like to see in terms of NFL draft content, be sure to let me know down in the comments as well, and I'll do my best to make that happen. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you are a brand new user on any one of those three sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's a 100% match up to $100, and then for BetUS, it's a 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section of this video or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and truly enjoyed this mock draft, and definitely do appreciate any feedback you guys do have in general.